Nobody leaves this hall, Alpha King Ronan Vale said, his voice cutting through the stunned silence, until someone explains why my mate was abandoned at the altar. 3 seconds earlier, Alara Whitmore had been standing beneath an arch of white roses, trying not to let 6 visiting packs watch her heart break. Gavin Mercer had not even bothered to look ashamed. He stood beside his father in a tailored black suit, his Alpha Air pin shining under the glass chandeliers. "This marriage will not continue," Gavin announced. A murmur rolled through the hall. Alara tightened her fingers around the small silver ring she had carried since sunrise. "You could have told me before I walked down the aisle," she said. Her voice stayed steady. "Barely." Gavin finally looked at her. "My pack needs more than a powerless Omega with no family name worth remembering." No one defended her. Not Alpha Conrad Mercer, who had approved the match. Not the elders who had spent months discussing her future as though she were part of a trade agreement. Even the women who had helped fasten her dress lowered their eyes. Alara felt every stare, every whispered judgment. The unwanted Omega. The girl Red Hollow had tried to marry off for political favor. She slid the ring from her finger and let it fall. The soft click against the stone floors sounded louder than Gavin's rejection. "Then we're done," she said. She stepped down from the altar before anyone could dismiss her again. That was when the great doors opened. Cold air swept through the hall, carrying the scent of pine, snow, and something darker. Royal guards entered first. Then Ronan Vale crossed the threshold in a long charcoal coat, the silver crest of the northern crown fastened at his shoulder. Every alpha in the room straightened. Every wolf went quiet. Ronan had come to witness the alliance ceremony. Instead, he found Alara walking toward him in a wedding dress, alone. Their eyes met. Pain flashed beneath her calm expression, but she did not lower her head. Ronan's wolf surged so suddenly that he stopped mid-step. A scent reached him through the flowers and expensive perfume, a faint trace of cedar, warm rain, and wild lavender. Impossible. He had searched for that scent for 12 years. Alara moved to pass him. Ronan shifted into her path without touching her. Behind them, Alpha Conrad cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, this is an internal Red Hollow matter." Ronan's gaze remained on Alara. Was this marriage her choice? Conrad hesitated. That pause answered everything. Ronan looked down and saw the silver ring on the floor, surrounded by crushed white petals. When he raised his eyes again, the temperature in the hall seemed to drop. "Miss Whitmore," he said, quieter now. "Do you want to stay here?" Alara stared at the most dangerous man in the werewolf territories. She expected an order, a claim, another decision made for her. Instead, he waited. "No," she whispered. Ronan turned toward the assembled packs. "Then she leaves under royal protection." Gavin stepped forward. "You can't interfere because you feel sorry for her." A low warning moved through Ronan's chest. Not anger. Something older. Something his wolf already understood. He faced Gavin at last. "I do not feel sorry for her." Then he looked back at Alara as the hidden bond pulled tight between them. "I recognize her." For one long second, nobody moved. Alara could hear the soft hum of the heating vents, the restless shift of shoes against stone, and her own heartbeat pounding harder than it had when Gavin rejected her. Ronan stood between her and the room, broad-shouldered and still, while every alpha present tried to understand what he had just said. "You recognize her?" Gavin asked. His confidence had thinned, but pride kept him from stepping back. Ronan did not answer him. He looked at Alara instead. "Do you want to leave alone, or do you want an escort?" The question caught her off guard. She had spent her whole life being told where to stand, when to speak, and which decisions were too important for an Omega to make. Now the Alpha King was waiting for her answer as if it mattered more than the opinion of every leader in the hall. "An escort," she said, then forced herself to add, "But I am not going anywhere as your prisoner." A few elders inhaled sharply. Ronan's expression did not change. "You are not my prisoner." Alpha Conrad stepped away from the altar. "Your Majesty, Red Hollow has legal authority over its members. She cannot simply walk out because she is embarrassed." Alara felt the old instinct to stay quiet rise in her chest. She pushed it down. "I was not embarrassed," she said. Conrad looked at her with open irritation. "Alara, I was publicly dismissed after your pack approved the agreement. There is a difference." The room went silent again. Ronan glanced at her, and something unreadable passed through his gray eyes. Approval, maybe, or surprise. The marriage contract is suspended, he said. So is any claim Red Hollow believes it has over Miss Whitmore. My legal team will review every signature before sunset. Conrad's jaw tightened. You cannot overturn pack law on instinct. Good thing I am not acting on instinct. Ronan's wolf disagreed. Alara could feel it now, not as a voice, but as pressure under her skin. A pull. A strange awareness that made the distance between them feel smaller than it was. She took one step toward the doors. As she passed him, the herbal perfume at her throat shifted in the cold air. Ronan went completely still. His hand closed once at his side, then relaxed. Alara noticed. So did Gavin. What is it? She asked quietly. Ronan studied her face as though he had found the answer to a question he had stopped asking years ago. Nothing you need to fear. It was not an answer, and they both knew it. Outside, 3 black vehicles waited beneath a pale afternoon sky. Snow had begun to dust the steps, though spring was only 2 weeks away. Ronan walked behind her, never crowding her, while the royal guards kept the pack at a distance. At the bottom of the stairs, Alara looked back at the glass hall, the white roses, and the people who had watched her fall without lifting a hand. Then she faced Ronan. Where are you taking me? Somewhere no one can make decisions for you tonight. And tomorrow? His gaze settled on the faint pulse at the base of her throat, where the hidden scent was beginning to break through. Tomorrow, he said, we find out who taught you to hide from me. Stonehaven rose out of the mountains like it had been built to keep winter itself outside. By the time the black vehicle reached the gates, the sky had turned dark, and snow covered the pine trees in clean white lines. Alara watched the fortress through the window. Glass, gray stone, steel, and warm lights behind narrow windows. It looked less like a palace and more like a place where powerful people came to make decisions no one else could question. Ronan sat across from her, silent for most of the drive. He had not tried to explain the mate bond again. He had not asked her to trust him. Somehow, that made her more aware of him, not less. When the vehicle stopped, a woman in a navy coat waited at the entrance. She had dark red hair, practical boots, and the calm expression of someone who had handled too many emergencies to be impressed by royalty. Alara Whitmore, this is Tessa Monroe, Ronan said. She is the chief healer for the crown. Tessa offered her hand. You have had a terrible day. I am not going to make it worse. Alara shook it carefully. That is a surprisingly good introduction. Tessa smiled. I worked on it. Inside, guards lowered their heads to Ronan, but he did not take Alara toward the royal wing. Instead, he led her to a quiet hallway overlooking the eastern valley. This room is yours for as long as you need it, he said. Alara looked through the open door. A fire burned behind a glass screen. A wool blanket rested across the bed, and someone had placed a tray of soup, bread, and coffee near the window. Not the queen's rooms, she asked. Ronan's expression tightened. You are a guest. Nothing more has been decided. Good. I thought you might say that. Tessa examined Alara after she changed out of the wedding dress and into borrowed clothes. She checked her pulse, her eyes, and the faint irritation along the side of her neck. Then she leaned closer. What perfume do you use? It is not perfume. It is an herbal blend. Who gave it to you? My stepmother. She said my scent made other wolves uncomfortable. Tessa's face changed. Not fear. Concern. How long have you used it? Since I was 13. Ronan, standing near the window, turned slowly. Every day. Alara nodded. Why? Tessa took a cotton pad, pressed it against Alara's neck, and held it beneath a small scanner. The screen flashed amber. Because this contains silverroot, black sage, and moonfennel. Together, they can suppress a wolf's natural scent. Alara stared at her. That is not possible. It is possible, Tessa said. It is also dangerous if used for years. Ronan's voice dropped. Can it block a mate bond? Tessa looked from him to Alara. Not completely, but it could make one person feel almost nothing while the other spends years believing the bond disappeared. Alara felt the room narrow around her. Her stepmother had called the mixture protection. She had said it kept Alara from embarrassing the pack. Ronan moved closer, then stopped several feet away, as if reminding himself that distance was still her choice. I will have the bottle tested, he said. No, Alara's answer came fast. You will give it back to me first. His eyes held hers. Why? Because it is the only proof I have that someone has been lying to me. For a moment, the Alpha King said nothing. Then he nodded. It stays with you. Tessa sealed the bottle inside a clear evidence pouch and placed it in Alara's hands. The liquid inside looked harmless, pale gold under the firelight. But as Alara held it, a sharp ache moved beneath her ribs, followed by a faint whisper from somewhere deep inside her. Not words. Not yet. A presence. Tessa looked at Ronan and spoke quietly. Her scent is not weak. Ronan's wolf stirred behind his eyes. I know. Tessa lowered her voice even further. It has been locked. The warning siren started just after noon. Alara had been carrying a tray of coffee through the lower council wing when every guard in the corridor turned toward the main chamber. A heavy crash sounded behind the closed doors, followed by a growl deep enough to rattle the glass panels. Stay here, one of the guards ordered. Alara set the tray down. Who is inside? Royal Council. 6 alphas, 2 betas, and 1 young guard who should not have been assigned to that room. Another crash cut him off. The doors opened, and a man stumbled into the hallway. He could not have been older than 22. His eyes had gone gold, his hands shook, and his wolf was pushing dangerously close to the surface. 3 guards raised tranquilizer launchers. Do not, Alara said. No one listened. Then Ronan appeared inside the chamber. Lower them. His voice was calm, but the pressure of his alpha command filled the hall. The weapons dropped at once. The young guard backed into the wall, breathing hard. I cannot stop it, he said. Too many alphas. Too much noise. Ronan took 1 step forward. The guard's wolf reacted with another warning growl. Alara understood before anyone explained it. Ronan's power was making the panic worse. What is his name? She asked. Damon Cross, standing near the council doors, looked at her sharply. This is not your concern. What is his name? Ronan answered. Noah Bennett. Alara moved before fear could talk her out of it. Damon caught her arm, but Ronan said, Let her go. She approached Noah slowly, keeping her hands where he could see them. Noah, look at me. His gaze snapped toward her. I said stay back. I know. She stopped a few feet away. You are not in trouble. You are overwhelmed. His breathing remained ragged. Alara could feel something strange gathering in her chest, warm and steady, like a second heartbeat. Listen to my voice, she said. Not the alphas. Not the room. Just me. Noah's shoulders lowered slightly. That is it. 1 breath. She held out her hand. You do not have to take it. After a long second, he reached for her wrist. The moment his fingers touched her skin, the pressure in the hallway changed. Noah's wolf went quiet. His eyes faded back to brown. Every person in the corridor stared at Alara. She stared at herself. How did you do that? Damon asked. I do not know. Ronan did not look surprised. He looked certain. Later, in the snowy training yard, Tessa asked Ronan to shift so they could test whether Alara's presence affected only frightened wolves. Alara stood behind the safety rail as Ronan's black wolf emerged, enormous and silent, his paws sinking into fresh snow. Even from 20 feet away, the bond pulled tight inside her. The wolf turned toward her. Guards reached for their weapons. Instead of advancing, Ronan's wolf crossed the yard, stopped before Alara, and lowered his head. Then, slowly, the most powerful wolf in the Northern Crown knelt. Alara forgot to breathe. Damon looked down at her wrist, where a pale silver symbol had appeared beneath her skin. His face lost all color. That mark, he whispered. It belongs to a bloodline that no longer exists. By sunset, everyone in Stonehaven had heard that Ronan Vale's wolf had knelt before an Omega. Alara felt the rumor following her through every hallway. Guards lowered their voices when she passed. Staff members looked at her wrist, searching for the silver mark that had faded beneath her skin. Even the young wolves in the medical wing watched her, as if she had become someone else overnight. Tessa closed the examination room door behind them. The symbol is real, she said. Damon is searching the royal archives, but until we know what it means, you should avoid the council. Alara folded her arms. Because they think I am dangerous? Because powerful people become nervous when they discover something they cannot control. Ronan stood near the window, back in human form, wearing a dark sweater and black slacks. He had kept nearly 10 feet between them since the training yard. No one is going to control her, he said. Alara looked at him. Including you? His gaze held hers without hesitation. Including me. Tessa explained that the herbs had weakened Alara's connection to her wolf and damaged her ability to recognize the mate bond. Stopping them too quickly could cause panic, fever, or uncontrolled shifts. We will reduce the dose slowly, she said. You may start feeling things you have never felt before. Alara glanced at Ronan. Things connected to him? Possibly. Ronan's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Alara turned to him. You keep calling this a bond. What exactly does that mean to you? It means my wolf recognized yours. That is not what I asked. Ronan crossed the room, then stopped several feet away. It means I feel when you are afraid. I know when you enter a room. It means every instinct I have tells me to keep you close. Alara's pulse quickened. And what do I owe you because of that? Nothing. The answer came so quickly that she almost did not believe it. Ronan continued, quieter now. A mate bond is not ownership. You can reject it. You can leave Stonehaven. You can decide you want no part of my life. Would your wolf accept that? No, his honesty caught her off guard. But he does not make decisions for you. Later that evening, Alara volunteered in the recovery wing, where several young Omegas were being treated for stress caused by forced pack transfers. She sat with a 17-year-old girl named Maisie, who had not spoken since arriving. Alara did not push her. She simply placed 2 cups of hot chocolate on the table and waited. After several minutes, Maisie whispered, "Are you really the king's mate?" Alara looked down at the faint mark on her wrist. "I do not know what I am yet." "Does that scare you?" "Yes." Maisie looked relieved. "You do not look scared." Alara gave her a small smile. "That does not mean much." When Alara returned to the library, she found Ronan reading council reports at the far end of a long table. A cup of coffee waited at the empty chair across from him. "Tessa said you take it with cream," he said. Alara sat down. For an hour, they worked in silence. Then both reached for the same file. Their fingers touched. Heat rushed through Alara's hand, sharp and immediate. A deep voice moved through her mind, rough with instinct. "Mine." She pulled back, startled. Ronan's eyes flashed gold, but he did not reach for her. His human voice came low and controlled. "Only if you choose." Damon found the first record at 2 in the morning. By breakfast, he had filled half the library table with sealed files, old photographs, and copies of documents that had been removed from the official archives. Alara stood in the doorway, still holding a mug of coffee, while Ronan read the same page for the 3rd time. "Tell me," she said. Damon looked at Ronan first. That small hesitation told her enough. "Do not ask his permission," Alara said. "This is about me." Damon pushed one folder across the table. "The mark on your wrist belonged to the Lenara bloodline." Alara sat slowly. The name meant nothing to her, but something inside her wolf stirred at the sound. "Who were they?" "Omegas," Damon said. But not in the way the packs used that word now. They served as bondkeepers. They could calm unstable wolves, sense damage in mate bonds, and help separate true bonds from political claims. Alara thought of Noah in the hallway. Ronan's wolf kneeling in the snow. The voice in her mind. What happened to them? Damon opened another file. They were accused of supporting a rebellion 25 years ago. Their records were erased. Most were reported dead. Reported? Ronan asked. Damon slid a black and white photograph toward Alara. A young woman stood outside an old government building in Colorado, her dark hair pulled back, her gray-blue eyes painfully familiar. Alara stopped breathing. "That is my mother." The label beneath the photograph read Serena Lenara Whitmore. Alara touched the edge of the picture. "I was told her name was Serena Hale." "The last name was changed," Damon said. "So was the cause of death." Alara looked up. "She died from a lung illness." Damon's silence hardened the air. Ronan closed the file. "Damon, there is no death certificate," he said. "No medical report. No burial record. She disappeared after she filed a formal accusation against the Royal Succession Council." Alara pushed back from the table. "No, my stepmother took me to a grave every year." "The grave may have been part of the cover story," Damon said gently. Alara stood and walked to the window. Snow moved across the mountain in thin sheets. For years, she had believed her mother had left her because death gave her no choice. Now even that grief felt borrowed. What did she accuse them of? Ronan answered this time. "Manipulating the line of succession." Alara turned. "Your family." His expression remained controlled, but she felt the tension through the bond. "My father was crowned less than a year after Serena disappeared." The truth settled between them, heavy and dangerous. Alara looked at the photograph again. "So my scent was hidden because of who she was. Or because of what she knew," Ronan said. Damon reached for the final document. "There is more." The page was damaged, the lower corner darkened by age, but Serena's signature was still clear. Most of the statement had been blacked out. Only one sentence remained untouched. Alara read it once, then again. The room seemed to tilt beneath her. The heir raised inside the royal household is not the rightful successor. Ronan went still. Damon lowered his voice. That statement was filed 3 days before your mother vanished. Alara looked from the page to the man across from her, the Alpha King tied to her by a bond neither of them had chosen. Ronan, she whispered, what if your crown was built on the reason they erased my family? Ronan did not answer right away. He stood at the end of the library table with Serena's statement in his hand, staring at the sentence that could tear apart the Northern Crown. Alara expected denial, anger, maybe in order to lock the files away. Instead, he folded the page carefully and said, then we find out the truth, even if it costs me the throne. The words should have reassured her. They did not. That is easy to say before the council knows, she replied. Ronan looked at her. You think I would choose a crown built on a lie? I think people choose power every day and call it duty. Damon lowered his eyes. No one argued. That night, Alara could not sleep. The herbal dose Tessa had reduced left her senses painfully awake. She heard footsteps 3 rooms away, the wind scraping ice across the windows, and a slow, uneven heartbeat somewhere beyond the wall. Ronan. The bond pulled her into the hallway before she could decide whether following it was wise. She found him in a private sitting room with the lights off. He sat on the floor beside the couch, one hand pressed against his chest, his breathing controlled but strained. You should not be here, he said. You sound terrible. I have sounded worse. She stayed near the doorway. Is this because of the files? Partly. His eyes flashed gold in the dark. Your scent is returning. My wolf has been searching for it since I was 21. Alara went still. Ronan continued, each word measured. There was a summit in Montana 12 years ago. I caught the scent of cedar and lavender in a crowded hall. My wolf recognized it before I even saw the girl carrying it. Me? I believe so. The next morning, it was gone. Your name disappeared from the guest list. Every lead ended with sealed records. Alara remembered Marissa arriving at her room after that summit with a new bottle of herbal perfume. She had called it a necessary precaution. She knew, Alara whispered. Ronan's breathing broke for half a second. A low growl moved through his chest, then stopped. Go back to your room. No, his gaze snapped to hers. Alara, you said your wolf does not make decisions for me. Mine does not make them for you either. She crossed the room and sat on the carpet several feet away. Do not come closer, he warned. I am not. She folded her legs beneath her. Match my breathing. Ronan gave a humorless laugh. You think breathing will fix this? No. I think being alone has not. That silenced him. Alara breathed in slowly, then out. Again. After a few moments, Ronan followed. The tension in the room eased by degrees. His hands unclenched. The gold faded from his eyes. Neither of them moved closer. They did not need to. The bond stretched between them, warm and steady, no longer a chain but a bridge. I will not become your cure, Alara said softly. I know, and I will not let you use me to save your crown. I know that too. She watched him carefully. Then why did you search for me? Ronan's answer came without hesitation. Because for 1 second, 12 years ago, my wolf felt like it had come home. Something inside Alara stirred. Not fear, not pressure. A presence opening its eyes after a long sleep. Her breath caught as a quiet voice rose from deep within her, clear for the first time. We know him. Lady Sabine Crowhurst arrived at Stonehaven before lunch with 12 Silver Crest guards, 3 legal advisors, and the kind of smile that made everyone in the entrance hall stand a little straighter. Alara watched from the upper landing as Sabine removed her white coat and handed it to an attendant. She was tall, composed, and carried herself like someone who had spent her entire life being prepared for a throne. She came for the alliance meeting, Tessa said beside Alara. What alliance? Tessa hesitated. The one the council has wanted for years. Alara understood before she asked. With Ronan? Yes. The answer should not have hurt. Nothing had been promised between Alara and Ronan. No bond had been accepted. No future had been discussed. Still, the ache under her ribs arrived before reason could stop it. Sabine entered the council chamber without looking up. 20 minutes later, Ronan sent for Alara. The room was colder than usual. Pack leaders filled both sides of the long table, and Damon stood behind Ronan's chair with a folder pressed against his chest. Sabine sat at the opposite end. "Miss Whitmore," one elder began, "the Northern Crown is facing unrest. Silver Crest controls the eastern trade routes and nearly 4,000 wolves. A formal union between Alpha King Vale and Lady Crowhust would stabilize the territories." Alara looked at Ronan. His expression was unreadable. "Why am I here?" "Because your presence complicates the bond agreement," the elders said. Sabine leaned back. "That is a polite way to say they want you hidden until they can decide whether you are useful or dangerous." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Alara studied her. "You do not seem upset about losing a possible crown." Sabine's smile held no warmth. "I was raised to protect my pack, not dream about wedding photographs." Ronan finally spoke. "There will be no political bond. Then there may be war," another alpha warned. "Then we prevent war without trading women between territories," Ronan replied. The doors opened before anyone could answer. Gavin Mercer walked in beside Alpha Conrad, both wearing red hollow colors. Alara's wolf recoiled. Ronan rose so quickly that every guard in the room tensed. "You were not invited," he said. Conrad placed a sealed document on the table. "We came to retrieve a member of our pack." Alara felt every eye turn toward her. Gavin did not meet her gaze. "She concealed her bloodline," he said. "Red Hollow has the right to investigate." "I concealed nothing," Alara answered. "I did not know." Conrad dismissed her with a glance. "That will be determined at home." Ronan stepped between them. "She is not going anywhere." Sabine tapped one finger against the table. "You should read the document before threatening each other." Damon broke the seal. His face tightened as he scanned the first page. "This order predates the wedding." Alara looked at Gavin. "What order?" Gavin swallowed. "The marriage was cancelled before the ceremony began." "By your father?" "No," his voice dropped. "By someone inside the royal council." The room fell silent. Damon turned the paper over and stared at the signature. Ronan's expression changed first. Not surprise. Betrayal. "Who signed it?" Alara asked. Damon placed the page flat on the table so everyone could see the name beneath the royal seal. Elias Ward, the oldest advisor to the crown, the man who had served Ronan's father, the man trusted with every sealed bloodline record in Stonehaven. From the shadowed corner near the fireplace, Elias slowly rose to his feet. "Your Majesty," he said, calm as ever, "there are truths about Miss Whitmore that this kingdom was never meant to survive." Elias did not deny the signature. He stepped into the center of the council chamber while every alpha watched him, his silver hair neat, his expression almost calm. "I stopped the wedding because Red Hollow was about to place a Lenara heir under alpha control," he said. "You call that protection?" Alara asked. "You left me there to be humiliated." Humiliation was safer than discovery. Ronan moved around the table. "You do not get to decide what she should survive." The pressure of his command rolled through the room, but Elias remained standing. "That is exactly what kings have always done." Damon opened the remaining pages of the order. Bank transfers, private messages, and sealed medical requests filled the file. One name appeared again and again. Marissa Whitmore. Alara felt cold spread through her chest. "My stepmother worked for you." Elias looked at her with something close to regret. "She was paid to keep your scent hidden and your wolf dormant." "Since I was 13. Since the Montana summit," he corrected. Ronan's eyes flashed gold. "You knew she was my mate." "I suspected. That made her more dangerous." Alara stared at him. "Dangerous to whom?" Elias turned toward the council. The Lenara line was created to judge the fitness of alpha rulers. Their bond could strengthen a worthy king or expose one who held power through corruption. An old prophecy warned that the last Lenara Omega would either secure the Northern Crown or bring it down. Sabine folded her arms. "So you buried a child's identity because a prophecy made you nervous." "I preserved peace." "No," Alara said. Her voice was quiet, but the room listened. "You preserved control." Elias's expression hardened. "Without control, packs tear each other apart." Ronan stopped beside Alara, close enough for her to feel the mate bond, but he did not touch her. "And what did Alpha Conrad know?" Conrad looked toward the door. Gavin answered first. "My father knew about the payments." Conrad snapped his head toward him. "Be careful." Gavin finally looked at Alara. Shame had replaced the arrogance he wore at the altar. He agreed to keep you in Red Hollow. The marriage would have made it harder for anyone to investigate your records. Alara swallowed. Did you know? Not everything. That is not what I asked. Gavin's silence answered her. The betrayal hurt differently now. He had not simply chosen ambition over her. He had known part of the cage and helped close the door. Damon stepped forward. Your Majesty, this cannot leave the room yet. If the Pax hear the crown hit a Lenara heir, Elias will have enough support to call for a succession review. Alara turned to him. You want to hide me again? Temporarily, Damon said. Until we know who is loyal. That is what everyone says before they take away my choices. Ronan looked at his beta. She stays. Damon lowered his voice. Then the throne may not. Alara felt the council closing around her, each person measuring her value, her danger, her usefulness. Stonehaven no longer felt safe. It felt like Red Hollow with better walls. Hours later, Ronan found her room empty. The evidence pouch containing the herbal bottle was gone, along with Serena's photograph. On the desk lay a single folded note. Ronan opened it with unsteady hands. I will not hide, but I will not stay where people decide my life behind closed doors. By the time he reached the front gates, Alara's scent was already fading into the snow. Alara reached Red Hollow just before sunrise. The town looked exactly as she remembered, with familiar brick storefronts, pickup trucks lined along Main Street, and the stone lodge standing over everything like nothing had changed. But everything had. She walked past the front gate without waiting for permission. Guards recognized her immediately. Some looked embarrassed. Others simply stepped aside. Word traveled faster than she did. By the time she entered the lodge, whispers followed every step. The abandoned bride had returned. The Alpha King had sheltered her. The forgotten Omega carried a bloodline no one had spoken aloud in decades. Alpha Conrad was waiting in the council room. Gavin stood beside him, his shoulders tense, his confidence gone. You should have stayed with the crown, Conrad said. No, Alara answered calmly. I came for the truth. Conrad folded his hands behind his back. You came because Stonehaven is falling apart. I came because my mother left something here. His eyes narrowed for the smallest fraction of a second. Alara noticed. So did Gavin. There is nothing here for you, Conrad replied. Then you will not mind if I look. She walked past him before he could answer. Gavin followed her into the old ceremony hall. The white flowers were gone now. Workers had cleared away the decorations, but faint scratches from the wedding platform still marked the polished floor. Alara stopped in the middle of the room. Why are you here? She asked without turning around. Gavin took a long breath. Because I owe you the truth. That would be a first. He accepted the remark without arguing. I knew your scent was being suppressed. Alara closed her eyes for a second. Hearing the words out loud hurt more than she expected. How much did you know? Not everything. My father told me your family carried dangerous blood. He said marrying you would keep everything under control. And you believed him. Gavin looked down. I wanted to. She finally faced him. No, you wanted an excuse. He did not deny it. If I had refused my father, I would have lost my place as heir. Alara's voice stayed steady. You did not leave me because you did not care about me. You left me because you cared more about your future than your character. Gavin's shoulders sank. You are right. I do not hate you, Gavin. He looked up hopefully. But I cannot trust someone who stayed silent while other people decided who I was allowed to become. Before he could answer, Alara noticed something unusual beneath the old ceremony platform. One corner of the wooden floor sat slightly higher than the rest. She knelt and brushed away years of dust until her fingers found a narrow metal ring hidden inside the frame. With a firm pull, a concealed compartment opened beneath the altar where she had once stood alone. Inside rested a weathered cedar box wrapped in blue cloth. Her heartbeat quickened. The box carried the same carved moon symbol that had appeared on her wrist. Gavin stared at it in disbelief. I have never seen that before. Alara carefully lifted the lid. Inside were several handwritten journals, a silver pendant, and one sealed envelope with her name written across the front in her mother's handwriting. Before she could touch it, heavy footsteps echoed through the hall. Alpha Conrad entered with 4 pack guards behind him. His face had gone pale the moment he saw the open compartment. Close that box, he ordered. It belongs to the pack. Alara stood, holding the cedar box against her chest. It belonged to my mother. Conrad's voice turned cold. You have no idea what you are carrying. Then tell me. I cannot. Or you will not. Conrad looked at the guards. "Take the box." None of them moved. They looked at Alara instead. For the first time, not as the forgotten Omega they once ignored, but as someone whose presence alone had begun to change the balance of the entire pack. At that exact moment, Alara felt the mate bond surge unexpectedly through her chest. It carried no words, only one overwhelming emotion from Ronan, urgent enough to steal her breath. He was coming, and something had gone terribly wrong at Stonehaven. The cedar box never left Alara's hands. The pack guards looked from Alpha Conrad to her, uncertain whose order carried more weight now. Before anyone moved, another voice echoed through the ceremony hall. "No one touches that box." Elias Ward stepped inside with two council representatives wearing the silver seal of the crown. His arrival silenced the room more effectively than a shouted command. Alara's grip tightened. "You followed me." "I came because history has a habit of repeating itself," Elias replied. "Your mother opened that same compartment 25 years ago." The words landed harder than any accusation. "She was here?" Alara asked. "She discovered evidence that would have shattered every major alliance in the territories." Elias looked almost tired. "She believed the truth alone would save everyone. She was wrong." Alara lifted the sealed envelope. "You do not get to decide whether I read this." "Read it," Elias said quietly. "But understand that every page brings the packs closer to civil conflict." Conrad finally found his voice. "The box belongs to Red Hollow." "No," Elias answered without looking at him. "It belongs to the woman you all failed." Before another word could be spoken, one of the council representatives stepped forward carrying a leather portfolio. "By authority of the High Council," he announced, "an emergency succession review has been called at Stonehaven." Alara felt the bond tighten painfully across her chest. "What happened?" The representative hesitated. Elias answered instead. "The council voted to suspend Alpha King Ronan Vale's executive authority while the investigation continues." The room went completely still. Gavin stared in disbelief. "They removed the king?" "Temporarily," Elias corrected, "until questions surrounding the succession are resolved." Alara's heart sank. Ronan had promised to search for the truth even if it cost him the throne. She had not believed the price would come so quickly. Hundreds of miles away, Stonehaven's great council chamber stood quieter than anyone had ever seen it. Ronan removed the silver crest from his jacket and placed it on the long oak table. Around him, council members avoided his eyes. Damon remained standing beside the chair he had guarded for years. "Do not do this," Damon said. "If you surrender the crest now, Elias controls the process." Ronan looked at his oldest friend. "If I ignore the council, I prove every accusation they have made. You are still their king. Not if I abandon the laws I swore to protect." He pushed the crest toward Damon. "Keep it safe. I cannot wear it. I am not asking you to." Tessa stepped into the chamber carrying a travel bag. "I have prepared medical supplies." Ronan looked at her. "For what?" "For wherever you are going next." A faint smile crossed his face for the first time all day. "You always were impossible to discourage." Back in Red Hollow, Alara finally opened the envelope. Inside was a single handwritten letter from Serena. The paper had yellowed with age, but the ink remained clear. "My dearest Alara, if you are reading this, then the secret I tried to protect has finally found you. Never let anyone convince you that your bond exists to serve a throne. A true bondkeeper serves truth before power and conscience before fear. If the day comes when a king is willing to lose everything rather than force your choice, then listen to your own heart before you listen to any counsel." Tears blurred the final lines. "Your father once told me that courage is not standing above others. It is standing beside the right person when the world tells you to walk away." Alara folded the letter carefully. She looked toward the mountains beyond the lodge. Through the mate bond, she felt exhaustion, determination, and one unmistakable promise. Ronan was no longer traveling as a king surrounded by soldiers. He was coming as one man who had given up a crown rather than let someone else decide her future. By nightfall, the ceremony hall had filled with representatives from 8 packs. Elias had ordered the emergency gathering himself, claiming the Lenara bloodline had to confirm a new leader before the Northern Crown fractured. Alara stood beneath the same arch where she had once been rejected, but there were no flowers now. Only the cedar box, Serena's letter, and the silver pendant resting on a narrow table. Alpha Conrad remained near the council seats. Gavin stood apart from him. The bondkeeper will complete the recognition rite, Elias announced. Once she confirms a stable alpha, the territories will have lawful leadership again. Alara looked around the room. You mean the leader you already chose? Elias did not answer. A broad alpha from one of his allied packs stepped onto the platform. Alara could feel the ambition rolling from him before he spoke. Do what is required, he said. The packs need order. They need truth, Alara replied. Elias lifted his chin. Without the right, trade routes close, alliances fail, and thousands of wolves lose protection. You have used fear to control people for 25 years. His expression tightened. Your mother said the same thing. The main doors opened before Alara could respond. Ronan entered without his royal crest and without a military escort. Tessa walked beside him. Damon followed carrying 3 sealed folders, while Sabine Crowhurst came in with representatives from Silvercrest. Every voice in the hall faded. Conrad stared at Ronan. You have no authority here. Then you should have nothing to fear from me, Ronan said. Damon placed the folders on the council table. These contain payment records connecting Elias Ward to scent suppression, altered bloodline files, and illegal pack agreements. Sabine added a second portfolio. Silvercrest traced the money through 4 private accounts. He paid council members to support the succession review before Serena Whitmore's statement was even recovered. Elias turned toward the gathered leaders. Fabricated evidence from a displaced king, and the woman promised to marry him. Sabine's eyes hardened. I was never promised to anyone. Gavin stepped forward next. Alpha Conrad reached for his arm, but Gavin pulled away. My father knew Alara's identity was being hidden, he said. So did I? I stayed quiet because I was afraid of losing my position. Conrad's face went rigid. Think carefully about what you are doing. For once, I am. Gavin looked at Alara. I cannot undo what happened, but I will testify to every agreement. Damon faced the council. I also failed her. I asked that she be hidden to protect the crown. I was wrong. Elias struck the table with his palm. Enough. Begin the rite. The chosen alpha reached for Alara's wrist. The silver mark beneath her skin remained dark. Why is nothing happening? He demanded. Alara stepped back. Because the Lenara gift does not obey force. Elias went still. Alara lifted Serena's pendant and faced the pack leaders. A true bondkeeper does not create a rightful ruler. She reveals whether one already exists. She turned toward Ronan. He did not move closer. I did not come to ask for your bond, he said. I came to make sure the choice remained yours. Even if I walk away, even then. The truth of his answer passed through the mate bond, steady and clear. Alara crossed the platform and stopped in front of him. You gave up your authority instead of using it against me. I should have protected your freedom before I protected the throne. She held out her hand. Ronan looked at it, then back at her face. Are you sure? Now I am. The moment their hands met, silver light spread across Alara's wrist and circled Ronan's palm. Every alpha in the hall felt the shift. Not submission. Recognition. The pressure that had filled the room broke apart, and Elias's chosen leader dropped his gaze. Alara faced the council without releasing Ronan's hand. The bond accepts him, she said. But the crown will not return under the old laws. Ronan looked at the leaders who had suspended him. Then let the first act of the new reign be changing them. Elias stood alone beside the altar, his control finally gone. The place where Alara had once waited to be chosen had become the place where an entire kingdom waited for her decision. 3 weeks later, the council reconvened at Stonehaven beneath rules no alpha could rewrite in secret. Elias Ward was stripped of office and placed under permanent watch while the packs reviewed every record he had altered. Alpha Conrad lost command of Red Hollow after his own council voted him out. Gavin gave up his claim as heir and began turning over evidence, not because Alara forgave him, but because redemption meant accepting a life without the future he once protected at her expense. Ronan returned to the throne only after the leaders approved a new charter. No mate bond could be treated as ownership. No political union could stand without clear consent. Omegas gained the right to hold council seats, refuse transfers, and challenge pact decisions without an alpha speaking for them. Damon became the first official to testify publicly about his own failure. Loyalty without conscience is just fear wearing a uniform, he told the council. Sabine secured the eastern trade routes without marrying anyone, and Silvercrest signed the new charter first. Alara did not become queen because the bond had chosen Ronan. She accepted a separate title, royal bondkeeper, with authority independent from the crown. Her first decision was to open the sealed Lenara archives to every pack. Her second was to create safe houses for young wolves whose rank had been used against them. Months later, Tessa found Serena alive in a quiet mountain community outside Boulder, Colorado. She had spent years protecting the last surviving bondkeepers and gathering proof against Elias. When mother and daughter finally met, there were no perfect words. Serena touched Alara's face and whispered, "I am sorry I missed so much." Alara held her hand. "Then do not miss what comes next." In early winter, Ronan and Alara stood in Stonehaven's courtyard beneath strings of warm lights. There were no visiting dignitaries, no alliance contracts, and no crowded rows of people waiting to judge her. Tessa carried coffee. Damon complained about the cold. Serena laughed when Ronan nearly dropped the simple silver pin he had chosen instead of a royal ring. It had been made from the metal Alara once left on the floor of Red Hollow's ceremony hall. Ronan held it between them. "This is not a claim," he said. "I know. It is not a promise that I will always get things right." Alara smiled. "That would be a suspicious promise." His expression softened. "It is a promise that I will never ask the bond to speak louder than you." She let him fasten the pin to her coat, then placed its matching piece on his. Their wolves settled quietly beneath their skin. Not conquered, not owned, at peace. Snow drifted across the courtyard, and the windows behind them glowed with the warmth of people who had chosen to stay. Ronan looked toward the open doors, then back at her. "Do you want to come inside?" Once, every important question in Alara's life had been answered before anyone asked her. Now the most powerful man in the territories waited as though her choice was the only law that mattered. She took his hand. "Yes," she said, "but not because you are king." "Why then?" Alara looked at the home they had built from the truth others tried to bury. "Because you made room for me before you knew whether I would choose you." They walked inside together, leaving no one behind at the door. And years later, when young Omegas asked how the laws had changed, Alara never began with the crown or the prophecy. She told them something simpler. A person can be ignored by an entire room and still carry a truth powerful enough to change it. Being chosen by someone else may heal an old wound, but choosing yourself is what teaches the world how to see you.